Deputy Sean Kenny, please.
And Taoiseach, I know we've been talking with the last couple of questions in relation to COVID, but what I wanted to raise is that we have a situation where school secretaries who did enormous work over the last 6 months to make sure that one of the best achievements we got out of COVID so far has been the reopening of our national schools and our secondary schools. There are over 1,000 school secretaries who are not being treated equally in terms of their pay and terms of and conditions of employment. And I'm asking, will the government enter into meaningful discussions to make sure within the Labour Court, as agreed by the former Minister Joe McHugh last October in the House, that's 12 months ago. The issues relate to the fact that over 1,000 school secretaries are being treated unequally, as they are not getting paid other than through an annualised grant. They are working maybe side by side, or they are working in schools and towns and villages where a school secretary in another school is getting their full pay and are being treated as public servants, get their holiday pay and get their entitlements. We have relied on the school secretaries to make sure that the schools and the management of the schools have some resource in place. Many of these school secretaries worked over the summer months without pay to make sure that the schools were reopening. I understand that discussions have taken place, but the discussions have not been meaningful. And I'm asking the government, will you ensure fair treatment and parity of esteem to those school secretaries? They are not very happy at the moment. They're not happy with the fact that their issue is being kicked down the road. Secondly, they are contemplating industrial action. I think it would be indictment on us all if school secretaries had to go out on strike after all they have done. We have talked about frontline workers and the bravery of them. I believe the school secretaries are frontline workers as well. So I'm asking you, Taoiseach, for your response to that. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Deputy Kenny, for raising this issue, and I know it's one that's close to your heart, and I remember us speaking about it months ago when we were in government together, and I want to say that the government really does value the essential work that's done by school secretaries and by school caretakers. Very often the school secretary is the first person you meet on the way into a school, and the caretaker is the last person to leave in the evening. Schools would not operate without them. And I think the role that they play in our education system is as important as that of school teachers, SNAs and school principals. And for that reason, it is the objective of this government to regularise their employment, their terms and conditions and their pension rights as well. But that can only be done going forward. It can't be done retrospectively for reasons that I will explain. And of course it has to be done by agreement and by engagement. And I sincerely hope that will take place. I'm advised that officials from the Department of Education and the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform and school management bodies met with Force of the Trade Union on the 1st of October in the Workplace Relations Commission. An offer of a modest multi-annual pay increase was made to Force at that meeting, but this wasn't acceptable to the union. The Department of Education, in conjunction with the Department of Employment and Expenditure Reform, is considering the union's request to refer the matter to the Labour Court for determination. A number of technical issues exist as to whether the department, as neither the department nor the management bodies are the employers of the staff in question. In the circumstances, Force's statement that it is considering strike action is regrettable, and as we know, any such action would have a day-to-day impact on the operation of schools at this most critical time and would disrupt tuition for students who have only recently returned to school after a 6-month gap. The government is keenly aware of the role that is played by these vital staff, and significant improvements to the pay of secretaries and caretakers has been made since 2015 under a pay arbitration scheme. This provided for a pay increase of 10% between 2016 and 2019 for staff, with a minimum rate of €13 per hour phased in over that period, and the average hourly rate for a school secretary is now €15.49, which is in line with the hourly rate for a grade 3 clerical officer, taking into account the fact that a clerical officer would work through the summer.
Kenny.
Thank you, Taoiseach, for that. I suppose there are a number of issues that you talk about engagement. I think it's important that engagement takes place. As I say, last year, it's a year ago since the then Minister agreed to enter into engagement. I I do believe that the offer made by the Department of Education was in terms of a pay rise. What the school secretaries want is equality in their pay conditions and terms. This issue has not been addressed by the Department of Education officials or the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform in the discussions. And I do believe that if we're going to really bring into force what we say and what we think and how we hold school secretaries in high esteem, what we need to do is to make sure we do that by engaging in the mechanisms that are there. And I would again urge that this is taken up as a matter of urgency. School secretaries are not people who want to go on strike. They're not threatening it if they don't get someplace. But I think there's a short window of opportunity for the departments to actually engage meaningfully to find a resolution to this matter once and for all.
Thanks, Deputy. You're correct. A pay rise has been offered, but this isn't just about pay, it's about other issues as well. And school secretaries and caretakers understandably want their employment terms and conditions to be regularised. They want to be public sector employees, like, for example, teachers are, like, for example, other secretaries in the public service, in local authorities, working in civil service departments are. But you have to work out what equality means. Secretaries and clerical officers working in government departments and in local authorities work year-round would only have a few weeks annual leave. So a lot of those things have to be worked out because equality has to be defined in that context. And also anything that we do, as is always the case with industrial relations matters such as this, would have to be prospective and not retrospective. Because if it was retrospective, it would kick off claims from up to 100,000 other people who are not directly employed by the state, but are employed by bodies that are grant aided by the state. And you'll be familiar with the similar issue that arises with CE supervisors, and the resolution can only be a prospective one, but we want to do that.